Okay, Ben, they're pronounced cicadas, not cicadas.
What did I? Oh my God!
Call them cicadas.
Shut the window. They're out there though. Whatever they are. Here's my cicada. Is it cicada or cicada?
Now I don't know. It's cicada, I believe.
I thought it was cicada.
Is it?
It's cicada.
Okay, that's what I thought. I thought it is cicada.
I love A, when a guest comes early, and B, when she just chimes in, particularly when she's right. Cicada. Okay, here's my cicada imitation.
Oh, boy. We are in for a show today.
That sounds like the creaky door in Candyman, a movie I'm about to see on Saturday.
Our guest.
Oh, are you? I was so scarred by the original that I genuinely don't think I can go see this reboot in the theater. I think I have to wait until I can watch it at home.
All right. I love that my guest is talking early, and I'm not going to reveal who this guest is. I love it. The suspense builds. Who could the guest be? It's somebody knowledgeable about Candyman. And by the way, I share your fear of the first Candyman. I talk a big game about how I watched it, but mystery guest, what I did was I had my hands over my eyes like this, and then I had this with my fingers in my ear going,
That was the last time that I was 12 years old, and I watched it with my older sister's boyfriend, and then they went out for the night. So it was the last time that I ever went into my mom's room and was like, I'm scared. I have to sleep with you in my life.
Wow. 12 years
movie.
old. God, am I old? I was a lot older than 12 when I saw Candyman. Well, you have a reason, mystery guest, for being scared, because you were 12. I, on the other hand, I don't know. I was old. Anyway, D.
All right.
Back to you, young man.
Your Ben Joravsky show for Thursday, September 9th is just moments away with a mystery guest. I mean, you see the name when you click on YouTube or the download, but it is a mystery guest. And it's brought to you by SEIU Healthcare, Illinois, Indiana, the Chicago Federation of Labor, our sponsors, the Chicago Teachers Union, and Chicago Reader. Chicago Reader for all things there is to know the city of Chicago. Where to go, what to do, what to eat, what to drink, what kind of pot to smoke, and so much more. Chicago Reader, chicagoreader.com. Check out the latest column from our very own Ben Joravsky. And if you want to help out this program and this very old podcast host, well, you can. chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. Jorav as in victory, SKY. chicagoreader.com/Joravsky. Go check that out, and you can become a bin head. Find out more information at chicagoreader.com. It is Thursday, September 9th. And live from my apartment and his attic, this is the Ben Joravsky Show. Today on the program, we welcome Emerson. And if anyone has kids listening, you may want to cover their ears when this guest comes on. Adolfo Mondragon returns. He curses a lot. And now your host, Chicago Reader columnist, Ben Joravsky.
Hello, everybody. Ben Joravsky here. We're calling this Sing a Song Thursday. And here's why. I'll tell you why. Because we're welcoming back Dr. D, which will make me break into song. Well, we tease him a lot because we got him on the spot. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Yeah, thank you.
Hey, guys. How's it going? I'm back.
So yes, Dr. D was gone one day, and I'm like, please come back. Our noted producer, Dr. D, not a doctor, Dennis, took the day off yesterday. He was absent because he was walking in the park, watching winter turn to spring. That's a great song by Roberta Flack, as Dennis could tell you. Actually, Dennis probably did not know that, but yes, I cannot help, D, bursting in the song, just seeing your lovely smiling face.
Aww.
And the reason you were walking in the park, I didn't say this yesterday because I didn't know if the reveal wanted to be revealed, but I'm revealing it now. His beloved girlfriend, Samantha, was a birthday, and they went to the Indiana State Dunes. Do I have that correct, D?
That is correct.
That is correct, Senator. So celebrating Samantha's birthday, everybody together. Happy birthday to you. Happy. That's 3 songs. Anyway, did you have a good day off, D?
Yeah, it was great. Went to the dunes, hung out, got a bunch of sand in my shoe. Fun stuff.
All right. I hope you took the sand out before you came in the house. And I hope you got some rest because the news is piling up, young man. Once a week, every Friday, we do Oh, What a Week. How about that, D? I got it right. And the news has been piling up for Dr. D. And this one tidbit, that's just a tidbit in today's Sun-Times. D, I hope you're taking notes on this one because I know we're going to take the deep dive in this. One of our favorite subjects on the Ben Joravsky Show is oh my God, the shit show that is the Republican Party in general, but in the state of Illinois in particular. And today's Bright One, my beloved Bright One, home delivered as always, Chicago Sun-Times, brought me news that there's a new Republican candidate for governor. I took pride in the fact that I'm probably the only lefty in the world, definitely only lefty with a who hosts a left-wing podcast that knows all the governor, Republican candidates for governor in the state of Illinois and their particular stances on the issue and what distinguishes one from another. And I can always tell when I'm talking to someone who does not listen to my show on a regular basis, when I mention one of them, like let's say I mentioned Darren Bailey, DB, they'll go, who? And I go, oh, you're not listening to the Ben Joravsky Show because we've talked extensively about Darren Bailey, trying to scare you into realizing Democrats. It's a scary world out there. You think you're so safe and secure here in the blue bubble of Illinois? Look what's happening in California, ladies and gentlemen. Got to pay attention to this stuff. Anyway, venture capitalist, super rich guy named Jesse Sullivan. Never heard of him before, folks. I'm not going to pretend like I know him. A lot of times I pretend I know stuff that I don't know, but in this case, I'm not going to pretend. He's already raised, according to the Sun-Times, $11 million. Hasn't even announced yet. I don't think anybody in the state of Illinois knows who this guy is, but he's already raised $11 million. Wow. To which Rich Miller from Capital Facts says, and I quote, dude isn't messing around. Great quote, Rich Miller, and you're absolutely correct.
Wait, this just in. J.B. Pritzker found $11 million in the dryer in one of his pair of pants.
Hey, I was going to oh, hold on, D. It's the COVID kicking in. I just want to say this, Jesse Sullivan, to Dennis's point, you think you're slick with your $11 million that you got little rich friends, your venture capitalist friends kicked in for you. J.B. Pritzker's got way more money than that. And yes, I know you're going to say, oh, Ben, you're a hypocrite. You believe in all this public financing laws and reforming it and this, that, and the other thing, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I'm a hypocrite. I like it when like a liberal Democrats got the money and the Republicans are scrambling to keep up. I suppose the other way around. So anyway, super rich venture capitalists from downstate Illinois, Jesse Sullivan. I'm thinking he's a super rich venture capitalist. Didn't we always go down this path in Illinois? Didn't we try that with Bruce Rauner? Remember Bruce Rauner, ladies and gentlemen? My source for all this, by the way, is, as I said, the Chicago Sun-Times, a story with no byline. Apparently nobody wanted to be associated with this dude. I don't, just kidding. And here's the quote from the Sun-Times. Sullivan has declined Sun-Times request for an interview this week. Not a good sign, ladies and gentlemen. Hasn't even announced he's officially running. He's already ducking the press. Well, we'll see. Sooner or later, Sullivan, you're going to have to answer some questions. What's your opinion on abortion rights, for instance? What's your opinion about that new abortion law in Texas? What's your opinion about the Supreme Court ruling on that issue? How about this one? What's your opinion about whether Donald Trump won November's election? That question tied up Gary Rabin, another Republican candidate.
Rabine.
You know, if I want to call him Rabin, I'll call him Rabine. What's the difference, D? Cicada. What's the difference? What is it again? Rabin or Rabine?
Rabine. Both of them.
Whatever. He's not going to be the nominee anyway, so why are we wasting our time talking about him? I'll tell you why we're wasting our time talking about him, because he totally epitomizes the helplessness of the Republican Party. Follow me on this, folks. Someone asked him, well, candidate, whatever your last name is, what's your position on whether Donald Trump won the election? His response, more or less, was along the lines of, I'm not smart enough to know that. Well, if you're not smart enough to know whether Donald Trump won an election that he clearly lost, I don't know what qualifies you to be governor of the state of Illinois. Once again, people, MAGA controls the Republican Party. Donald Trump controls MAGA, at least for the moment. So if you want to win the Republican primary for governor, you have to declare your allegiance to all things Donald Trump and Jesse Sullivan, that won't change for you no matter how many millions you may raise from your cronies. We got a great show today, everybody. Yes, indeed. Our first guest is here. Ann Emerson, top aide to Scotty Waguespack. I'm looking at her right now. She showed up early. I love when guests show, and she's already weighed in with some funny comments about Candyman. In the second part of the show, election lawyer Adolfo Dragon. Adolfo Mondragon will show up. We call him El Dragon. And yes, Dennis is absolutely correct. He's known to have a potty mouth, so we'll do the over-under again. How many minutes before he drops the F-bomb as he explains Chicago politics, election law, and all kinds of issues, including Zoom court. And I think I'm going to ask him to weigh in on the Supreme Court ruling as well. Everybody has to weigh in on that one. Anyway, Ann Emerson, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking time to join us.
Thank you so much for having me. When Dennis mentioned potty language, I just assumed that was because you were going to refer to me as my full title, but.
Yes, we'll get to that. Her full title, and she has a sense of humor about it. And we'll get into that, whether you should have a sense of humor about some things. I know it's probably best to have a sense of humor. But Ann Emerson, before we get into the meat of the matter, was along with a good friend of this show, Joanna Klonsky. Joanna, if you're listening, hello. Was completely and totally and unfairly dehumanized and trashed by a certain alderman of the 45th Ward named Jim Gardner, who I don't know, never met. But I'm not off to a good start with this guy. I met pretty much, I haven't met every alderman. No, I've stopped meeting aldermen a while ago. But I've known tons of aldermen in my lifetime, and most of them can refrain from talking about women without throwing out the B word immediately or the C word immediately. Apparently, Jim Gardner's got some issues on that front, as has been revealed. I guess I'm going to give a shout out to Block Club. I know Ann's going to correct me and tell me exactly who broke the story first, but I'm giving a shout out to Block Club because they've done some great coverage of this. So Ann was kind enough to come on the show and talk about this matter. And I don't know, Ann, to me, it's part of a larger trend, hostility toward women in general. And I'm going to bring in the Texas law regarding abortion. I think that's all part of this larger issue. And then what's going on at the Park District. I want to give a shout out to Scotty Waguespack, Ann's boss, one of the few aldermen who's spoken up on behalf of the female lifeguards who've been largely ignored in the city of Chicago, particularly by the Park District. And so shout out to you, Alderman Scott Waguespack, for standing up on their behalf. All right, Ann, let's just start with the beginning. Why don't you introduce your first time on our show? So just take a moment to introduce yourself to our listeners so that people can see what a great person you are and that you bear absolutely no resemblance to the things.
Oh, I might. Who can tell, right? Thank you so much again for having me. So Ann Emerson here. I am currently the Chief of Staff for the Committee on Finance. So that's my show down at City Hall. And previously, I was the Policy and Legislation Director to the Progressive Caucus from about 2015 to 2019. Yeah. So I've been in the mix with these guys for a long time. And you mentioned that most people can get through a conversation with me without calling me a bitch. And I would actually really like to impress that upon people. The outpouring of support I've received from many aldermen, alder people, and departments and folks that I've worked with for years, even when I was just an independent contractor, has been really heartening. And I came up working in construction and working in law. And so I've sort of been elbowing my way out of rooms full of dudes with a lot of big opinions and feelings since I was about 15, and working at city council, both just as a contractor, just as someone who was there to, write laws for all sorts of different clients. And my 2.5 years now on the government side has really, by and large, been a pleasure. I can have a fight with someone about a given issue, or we can argue about a given piece of legislation, and then we leave the room and we go back to talking about our lives or make plans to have a beer. It's really not been an issue. It's sort of in this way for me. So this has all been a little, I'm still a little shell shocked.
Mm-hmm. All right, why don't you talk about how you became aware of what Gardner had to say for you? Again, Jim Gardner is a rookie alderman from the 45th Ward in the city of Chicago. Just folks outside of the city don't know what the 45th Ward is. It's on the northwest side of Chicago. So just folks, even if you've only come to Chicago once in a while, just imagine driving from the Loop in a cab toward O'Hare. And at some point, you're going to go through the 45th Ward on the northwest side of Chicago. And so how did you become aware of what Jim Gardner had said to you in a text to some, we don't know who he texted, but anyway, how did you become aware of it?
I became aware because a friend, I'm a terrible tweeter, so I apologize to all of these very lovely people who've sent messages of support and have followed me on Twitter. I get on Twitter once a fiscal quarter and, sort of catch up. I'm very much a passive observer, but appreciate everyone nonetheless. So a friend of mine sent me a tweet from the People's Fabric, who've been doing incredible work. And it's my understanding that I think they may have been first in receipt of these particular texts. And so I had been on calls all day and in meetings. And then finally I looked down at my phone and I have several messages from this particular friend saying, look at your messages, pick up your phone. I'm calling for a reason. And that's when I saw it. And my mother had just flown into town from Boston because my birthday was this past Friday. And just really, next thing I knew, I was spending the afternoon on calls and sort of just trying to figure out what any of it meant.
Mm-hmm. So what he exactly said, he referred to you in a text to, I don't know, again, I do not know who he was texting because the identity of the person that Gardner was texting has not been revealed. I think it was a former employee. And the People's Fabric, you're correct to give them a shout out, is a community, I was going to say newspaper, but it's an online publication that's had sort of a contentious relationship, to put it mildly, with Alderman Jim Gardner. Apparently, a lot of people have contentious relationship with this guy. This guy's got some temper issues that he's got to really deal with. Anyway, so they got a hold of these text messages, and in one exchange, he had referred to you as Alderman Scott Wagasback's bitch.
Yes.
And I called you a top aide to Alderman Scott Wagasback, and you immediately corrected me that you actually work for the Finance Committee. You don't even work directly for Scott Wagasback.
Well, I do, in his capacity as the chairman of the Finance Committee, of course. That is who I answer to. But yes, the show that I run, if you will, is the Committee on Finance.
So when he calls you that, like, what do you think he's getting at? What's going on in his demented little mind when he says something, when he like boils down the essence of your existence to your connection?
Well, it's certainly easy, isn't it? Isn't that such an easy and I would argue just a very uninspired way to refer to women, especially women who seem to have some semblance of power and authority in city politics and city government. Because clearly, being a policy nerd, I've obviously been far more behind the scenes. You and I have known each other because of, through the caucus and whatnot, but Joanna's obviously had to deal with a lot more sort of public facing stuff. It's just, it's, I whenever I come across behavior like this, I always want to say, I guess I thought you'd be better at your job than that, to speak about two women who have been aligned and worked together for many years. in such a dismissive and derogatory fashion.
Yes, the other woman, of course, is Joanna Klonsky, a good friend of the show. As I said many times, she comes on. We do the creep report about men behaving badly, and this is a classic case of that. And he alluded in a different text to her. He also called her a bitch. And now, Joanna gets involved in politics. She was an advisor or consultant to John Arena, who was Gardner's predecessor as alderman of the 45th Ward. So I'm not saying he has a reason for calling her that, but I could understand why he would have a hostility to someone who's connected with the other side. It doesn't justify using that language, but I can understand the hostility. I don't understand where his attitude toward you come from.
Well, given that he seems to know an uncanny amount about quote unquote opposition, if you will, I don't think it's a secret to anyone that, again, in my role with the Progressive Caucus, that obviously I worked closely with John Arena for many years. Whether or not that's something that people know, again, I'm sort of the person that wrote their laws and arranged their policy positions and worked closely with Joanna to make sure we could pull them off. And but again, I think that goes to the point of it. It really doesn't matter. You can have ire for someone and be far more intelligent in your approach to sort of taking them down a peg or two, if that was the goal here. But also, what is again, that brings us sort of the broader issue of a lot of people just seem to be taking women down a peg or two all over the place right now.
So
Texas being no different.
Yeah, we'll get into the Texas, what's happening in Texas and the connection. I definitely believe there is a connection. All right. So when I ask you this question, I'm almost asking this question for myself as well. And so what do you think is the proper response in a moment like that? By the way, so these texts reveal that he also said nasty things about Alderman Tom Tunney as well. And so what, and some neighbors, some residents of his ward that he just obviously cannot stand. So here he is. It's been publicly revealed that he called you the B word. He really doesn't even know you at all, in a very dismissive and hostile manner. So what do you think is the proper response when someone is so aggressive and it comes out? How do you think the injured party should respond?
Well, I responded the way I wanted to respond, which was to take a beat and then request an in-person meeting, because I don't think that I'm going to go off a little bit here. I think that often I compare this to sort of the times when I was young. I was, 11 years old, taking the train through Boston to go to school every day, and met with, sexual or harassing or, clearly gender motivated harassment from people. And you learn, it's sort of put in you to not yell for someone to come help you out, not say this creep is touching me right now or making me feel uncomfortable or blocking my way, because people sort of look at you like, you're making us all uncomfortable. Why are you putting us all in this position where we have to face this and stand up against it? And I didn't want to be drawn in. I needed a minute. I didn't want to be drawn into one of those situations where I was sort of expected to take a rote apology over the phone for something that I wasn't entirely sure how I felt about it, or what my obligation to myself and to others, and especially these people who are living in a ward who are completely muted when they're represented by someone who's coming after them personally, physically, through their language, through intimidation. So he texted me and his text verbatim said, "Good morning, Anne. This is Alderman Jim Gardner. Please call me at your convenience. Thank you." And I responded with, "Good morning, Alderman. I would rather have a face-to-face meeting about this. Do you have availability after council on the 14th? I've heard nothing since. Radio silence. That was, it'll be a week ago tomorrow morning. So I think that this seems to be part of a pattern. And there are plenty of other people who deserve representation who've experienced similar outbursts. And so I just feel an obligation to have accountability that means something, as opposed to picking up the phone, sort of have to accept an apology, and that box is ticked.
Let's just let me take a moment here to point out, contrast the responses, or the reach out, if you will, that Gardner made after his texts were publicized. So we know there were three people I've mentioned already. There's Scott Wagasback. There was a disparaging comment in the text about how Scott's dressed, which at his worst, Scott's dress is better than I do, so I'm in no position to make fun of Scott's dress. Oh my God, Gardner would have a field day with me, at least when it comes to dress. And then there was Tom Tunney, who he denigrated. Tom Tunney, the alderman of the 44th Ward, was denigrated. He denigrated Ann Emerson, and he denigrated Joanna Klonsky, as I mentioned. Now, that did not emerge publicly for a couple days. But anyway,
that hit the next day, I believe.
The next day, okay.
The end of the next day.
So 2 men, 2 women. Gardner called the men. He called Tom Tunney, and he called Scotty Wagasback. Called them directly. In the case of Ann Emerson and Joanna Klonsky, he sent them a text asking them to call him. Now, this was my read of this, Ann, and feel free to disagree with me if you do. Unlike Jim Gardner, I welcome guests disagree with me from time to time. I believe he was treating you as a subordinate. I believe he was treating Scott as a peer. So it's like, well, I'm an alderman. I will apologize to the alderman. He didn't even, he barely even insulted Scott, just made fun of his clothes. I don't know why. He called Scott to apologize to Scott, but he didn't call Ann. He was like, oh, Ann, you call me. Jim Gardner, that's not an apology. That's a command. That's an order. That's like you're treating Ann Emerson, you're like doubling down.
There was nothing in that text that suggested why he was, as I said, I mean, that was verbatim. There's nothing in that text to suggest why he wanted me to call him. There was, just going to go ahead and say it because it's you. My name was misspelled. I'm Ann with an E, just so everyone knows I'm a 4-letter word, if you will. And God knows my name had already been splashed over every media outlet by Friday morning at 9 something when I received that text. So I didn't have any missed calls from him. However, my work phone goes off at the end of the day. So and either way, the point is right. He didn't reach me. If you're making an apology, if you genuinely feel you owe someone your sentiments of regret and want to ask them what they need from you to resolve the situation, you keep going until you get them. Yeah. That's where I land on that sort of thing. And I texted and explained exactly what I needed in terms of a conversation, and was met with radio silence. So
yeah, it's really hard because Chicago is this is me speaking, not Ann Emerson, but Chicago's a rough city in terms of you're supposed to be tough and take it. And so I think of Tom Tunney's response, for instance, Alderman Tom Tunney, Alderman of the 44th Ward. And I got issues with this one, and I may have mentioned this to you already, but I'm just going to say it. I've already said it on the air anyway. I got issues with it because Tom Tunney's attitude was like, well, he called, he apologized, it's over. I'm completely over it. He called me a bitch, but I'm completely over that. And I'm like, Well, I can't read Tom Tunney's mind. So I'm just going to assume that he's one of the few individuals in the history of humanity who got immediately over being called out that way. Do you hear what I'm saying, Ann? Most people would be really pissed off and hold a grudge forever. Go ahead, take it away, Ann.
I definitely can't speak for him. And, I think that there's no accounting for what people have been through in their lives that sort of determine how they handle situations like this. So I don't know. I don't know, and I wouldn't guess at it. And I enjoy a very respectful, pleasant relationship with Chairman Tunney. What I will say is that even in some of and I received so much support. I mean, people would be very surprised at some of the people who they would assume we're on opposite sides of things. So like, oh, they mustn't have a personal relationship or they mustn't have worked together in the past. I have worked with about 70, 80% of council. Yeah, about 80% of council in some way or another over the past 6 years. And furthermore, especially when you're a contractor, you do not, sort of like working a beat, you do not get anywhere by doing anything other than pleasing and thank youing everyone that you come across, not just because it's the right thing to do all the time. But also I don't know how other people get anywhere, but it's always been the easiest way to not have a door closed in your face and not set something up for failure. But even in some of the sort of messages of support I received, there was sort of that like, well, I know you won't give this the time of day. And I think that was meant in the sense of like, you're tough, you're strong, you're capable, you have succeeded on your own. I understand that, but there's also sort of that sentiment of what it means to not give it the time of day is just move forward. And my response to that is, well, I am going to give it the time of day because it's not just about me. It's not just about this moment in time. And it's not just about Alderman Gardner, right? It's about a bigger issue and sort of the insidiousness of casual sexism and misogyny. All institutionalized isms, I would argue, are the ones that really second by second strip away the autonomy of people who are disenfranchised or don't have as much access to a platform or don't have, it's just as many roads to make themselves heard.
Well put. And I'm not saying I'm a model. I just wanted to let you know that, Ann. I'm not saying I'm a model. Okay, I'm cut from the cloth of my dear mom. May she rest in peace. My mom, she was known to hold a grudge for 20 years.
Hey, man.
And
I'm from Boston. I get it.
And I know that if someone had done that to like anyone related to her, it would be.
My mom was not impressed. My mother is a 78-year-old attorney from East Hartford and then Boston, and she was in town for all this. But also I'll say, and she had some choice words, that's for sure, far more intelligent choice words. But I will also say this sort of leads me to the thing of, this has really made my professional and personal life suffer as well, in the sense that it's the week before committee. I mean, my work days are 14 hours long without sort of needing to address the elephant in the room on every call I get on. And then too, I had family in town. We were having a party for my birthday, and it sort of took all the oxygen out of the room. And that's another thing I think doesn't necessarily occur to people right away. I didn't want to spend my whole long weekend with my mom and my friends talking about, casual sexism and the alderman of the 45th Ward.
Well, I will say to the point that you've gotten support. I saw the latest Block Club story. They've been all over this. Got to give Block Club a shout out again. And Sue Sedlowski Garza one of my favorite alderwomen. She knows it.
The original Queen Sue, as we call her.
She said that he owes you to apologize. He should have showed up at your door, knocked on your door, and apologized. I'm like, come on, Sue. I don't want this guy anywhere near Ann Emerson's door. He call her up, all right? That's me speaking, not Ann Emerson. So I love you, Sue, but come on now. I don't want him knocking on anyone's door. Just do it. Just call him up. And treat Ann Emerson the way you treated Tom Tunney. Call her up. And then 20 aldermen signed a statement condemning Gardner's behavior. City Clerk Anna Valencia signed it as well. And I just want to give a shout out to my beloved members of the far left Democratic Socialist Caucus. I think every single one of them. I see you, JT, on there. Jeanette Taylor's on there. Byra Sixto Lopez.
Absolutely. And I don't have Jeanette Sells. So actually, I hope she does listen, because I can't wait to see her on Tuesday and thank her.
Yeah.
I've tried to be in touch with as many people as possible to thank them. The support's been really, really heartening, and it just makes it a lot easier to when again women have to do the work on the thing when they're the offended parties. It's made it a lot easier to sort of keep the conversation going until we get some semblance of accountability and response on this.
And we'll close with this. We've been talking a lot on this show all week, as you can imagine, and about the Texas abortion law. And we will be continually talking about it. And I will be warning people that, you mess around here in Illinois, you could lose your rights as well.
Exactly.
California is facing this right now with their.
It's only ever 4 years away.
Yeah. So I started off talking about the wacky Republicans running for governor here in Illinois. You think you're safe, and you may not be. But in your mind, what's the connection between the law that was just passed in Texas and then upheld by the Supreme Court, essentially? And it's just sort of the antagonistic, aggressive behavior that is just sort of casually displayed by men toward women.
The successes of the women's movement that we owe thanks first and foremost to the revolutionaries that brought it forward for everyone, especially those who had to fight the hardest and received the least uplifting, which women of color and Indigenous women, and that movement is being clawed back at a pace that takes up about 30% of my brain 120% of the time. We do not treat women as capable, autonomous human beings, capable of making sound decisions for themselves or others. And that's not accurate. Why wouldn't people think it's fine to one-off me as a bitch when we have national movements taking away our most fundamental rights to bodily autonomy? And I don't know where to begin, and I'd be more than happy to come back on if you want to talk about it at greater length. But again, we talk about crime, yet rape is called sexual assault or sexual violence more often than not on news programs. We still have this, what I deem to be a deeply puritanical reaction to, much like the Parks District issues of sexual harassment, sexual violence, abuse. I get it. Those are all very icky things, but they are realities that women and many other disenfranchised identifying people have lived with every second of every moment of every day. And it's exhausting. And I think that when we're just so still deeply influenced by this. Oh, that's kind of gross and it's kind of touchy and it gets into people's private lives and it gets into people's bodies and it gets into sex. I hate to break it to you, but for everybody that it's actually victimizing, it's all they ever get to think about. So I don't see how anything changes.
All right, Ann Emerson, thanks for coming on and talking about this. And yeah, maybe I will bring you back for a larger discussion about the abortion law in Texas. I'm with you 100% on that one. I see the connection. It's just like more violence against women, more control, and more totalitarian. Man, I'll tell you what, the right, they discovered for about a brief moment the concept of liberty when it came to vaccine mandates, and then having embraced it, they just suddenly discarded it, and really fast when it came to the Texas law regarding women and what they do with their bodies. It's very interesting. Different attitudes about liberty. Ann Emerson, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Thank you so much for having me. Now I'm going to hop off and figure out how many people I offended in the past 20 minutes.
You didn't offend anybody. That's Ann Emerson. Thank you very much. We're going to take a break. When we return, Adolfo Mondragon will be with us. Stick around, everybody.
Take care.
Hey, everybody, we're back. Before we get back to the show, though, live streamers, we do have a show. We recorded it yesterday. We just didn't live stream it. Go check it out, chicagoreader.com/Jarofsky. Ben, who did we have on the show yesterday?
Who did we have on the? Oh, my goodness. That was a great show, live streamers. Yes, it just shows you. I shouldn't expose the backdrop of the Ben Jarofsky show because we're hanging by a thread sometimes, it seems technologically, but Dennis has figured out a way to do the live stream. He's brilliant. The guy's a genius. And apparently there's only one computer that can do it. So when the doctor took that stroll through the park, watching winter turn to spring, we couldn't do the live stream. But yes, DJ Nate dropped it. It's on YouTube. And it's actually the video image. You can see me in my Bulls hat. And Monroe Anderson looking very dapper, as he always does. And we were talking what else about Trump and Texas. And then Jason Lee joined us. And Jason is our in-house expert on Texas. He was born and raised in Texas, does political strategy work in Texas and Chicago. And then we really got into all kinds of issues about the politics of abortion and the crime issues in the city of Chicago. So really good stuff. If you missed it, I must say so myself.
So you can check out the video. It's on YouTube. We just didn't live stream it, but we did record it. It is on YouTube, and you can download it. chicagoreader.com/Jarofsky. JORAV as in victory, SKY. All right, let me hit this button here. I started the clock. Adolfo Mondragon should be on soon.
Okay.
So far, 5 seconds without cursing. So, I mean, he isn't on yet, but, I mean, it is a record so far, maybe.
It's pretty funny. So I got to I shouldn't even, I'm revealing so much. I'm like incapable. It's like I'm like Jim Carrey in Liar Liar.
Yeah.
I can't help myself. I don't know what's going on. But so my guest Adolfo's like, "Where's the link?" And I go, "He sent it. Only I mistakenly sent the text to our last guest, Ann Emerson, who's probably wondering, what is this? This baby boomer is going around the deep end."
Oh, Lordy. Yeah, we haven't had Adolfo on in a while, have we?
No, we haven't had Adolfo on in quite a while. And I was Adolfo and I. There's Adolfo Mondragon. It all worked out well. Adolfo, I was just saying that we haven't had you on in a while. It seems like you've been on the show because you and I have attended so many baseball games together this summer. We've seen our beloved White Sox, and I want to thank Adolfo. Right. He's the one who got the tickets. He thought ahead of time. He got the tickets ahead of time.
That's right.
So we have a blast when we go to those games. But I've said this on the show many times, Adolfo, before we take the deep dive in the issues of the day. I just got to say this. You and I are pretty much the only people wearing masks at White Sox Park. I've pointed this out. And I don't know if this is a statement about you and I and the cautiousness with which we go through life, or it's a statement about just sort of the worldview of White Sox fans. Like, would it be any different at Wrigley Field with Cub fans? I don't know. I've not been to a Cubs game in so long. I cannot stand the owners of the Cubs. So I'm kind of boycotting the Cubs these days, Adolfo. But it's been a couple of weeks, about 3 weeks since you and I went to a game, and you've been to them since. Are there more masks at White Sox Park these days than there were the last time we were at a game, or is it still the same?
If there were, it's a sprinkling, man. Like it's got to be less than 1% of the stadium that has masks. You see here and there, but I think there was one game where we went and we saw virtually no one.
No.
Yeah. But I see a sprinkling here and there. But it's a lot of people are just super confident, and that's great if they're vaccinated and everything. That's awesome. And while you're in your seat in the open air, you're still pretty close to everyone behind you and around you, but if you got the air circulating or whatever, okay, I get that. But if you're waiting in line or in the concourse, dude, what? Come on, man, put that fucker on.
Yeah, man, put it on. White Sox fans, come on. I don't know if it's. I mean, like I said, it may be not just White Sox fans, but
as you can hear my voice, I have a cold. Thank God it's not COVID.
Yeah,
but. If my brother-in-law came in last week to do some stuff, and then my sister and stuff were probably carrying it too. But that's how quickly I got it, and that's a cold. Imagine this infectious ass Delta variant, and so it just goes to show you, man, you got to wear that mask.
Man, you don't have a cold. You're just up until 6 a.m. smoking cigarettes and drinking booze, man, like Tom Waits.
It's all the smoking that I do, right?
So the last time we were at here, I don't know if this is the last time, but we're sitting there, and then there was a man and his daughter in an empty seat and me. And then and then the wife came, the mom came, and she's walking up. She doesn't have a mask on. And I'm like, I look at the man, and there was an empty seat next to the man. So I say to the man, if you follow me, this one, people, I don't know if you're following me. I'm just going to go with it anyway. I say to the man, hey, could you move down a seat or have your wife sit next to you so I don't have to sit next to her? Because she's not wearing a mask. The man looks at me like, I don't want to sit next to her anymore. So she sat down right next to me, and it is, okay, we're outdoors. All right, people, I hear you. But it's awfully close for comfort.
Yeah.
I'm like, lady, just look at your husband, who you apparently don't like. He doesn't like you, but just look at him. I probably insulted
what did she tell you? She said, I'm vaccinated, or what did she say?
I think she told me F you. No, she didn't tell me a few. I can't remember what she told me. She may have told me she was vaccinated. Yeah, could have been that. So, but by then,
Yeah.
look, I'm so paranoid about getting this thing.
But dude, there was an empty seat next to her husband. Come on.
That's the part.
Like either move the fuck down or
And the husband was basically looking at me going, I don't want to sit next to her. What makes you think I want to sit next to her?
Oh shit.
Oh my God. And then the White Sox lost the game. There you go. On top of everything else, the White Sox lost.
So I finally went to a winning game, which is cool because I thought I was jinxing them for a while.
You thought you were? Okay.
I was. No, but I finally went to a good game and they won, and so I felt really good about that shit.
All right, let's move on. I have a whole bunch of issues I want to talk to you about. I sent you your homework. Did you get a chance to read your homework assignments?
I did, and it's pretty interesting, but it's very simple too.
The homework assignments, they're not hard homework assignments. I never give guests hard homework assignments.
No. The issue is it's an interesting issue, but at the heart of it, it's some lazy detective work is what it is.
All right, let's get at it. We talked about Jason Lee was on the show yesterday. We talked about it, and I've been thinking about it ever since. And I'll give a little summary, and then I'll kick it over to Adolfo. And as I do, remember, Adolfo is an attorney, a practicing attorney. B, he's a former political candidate. He ran for alderman and state senator. And C, he lives on the south side of Chicago in the back of the yards area. I believe his alderman is Raymond Lopez, alderman of the 15th Ward, who's really making his name as a tough law and order alderman. So Adolfo has a lot of opinions on this, and the issue that was addressed in the and he's a civil libertarian, Adolfo Mondragon. That's something else you should know about him. Real civil libertarian, maybe even more than I am, if such a thing is possible. And so the issue we talked about it yesterday is this: that there is a conflict, to put it mildly, between some police officers, some detectives, and prosecutors with Kim Foxx's office as to whether charge should be filed in certain high-profile murder cases, shooting cases, and the police want the charges filed. And the prosecutors are telling the police, we can't take this to court and file charges because your case isn't strong enough to win a conviction. We don't want to have to go through this whole process and not get a conviction. So you got to come back with stronger evidence. And the police are resisting, and they say that we want to file the charges on ourselves if we have to. And it's going back and forth, and it's sort of leading to this this notion that's out there, Adolfo, that the crime, the shootings, the violence in Chicago, an astounding amount of violence in this city, there's a correlation between that and the reluctance of Kim Foxx and her prosecutors to crack down on criminals and throw the book at them, so to speak. So that's just the general setup. We talked about it yesterday with Jason Lee. Your thoughts, Adolfo?
Yeah, I think when you read the news article, it's pretty clear to me right away as a lawyer that this matter completely turns on lazy detectives in that area. The case of, that they talk about with the shooting of the 7-year-old, I think, right? Mm-hmm. Now, everybody, including Kim Foxx, no matter what you believe, everybody, when something like that happens, wants swift arrests made, and they want to get the culpable individuals behind bars. But in this case, anyway, they did some investigation. They had some amount of information, but they didn't have enough to arrest the guy. And the detective, the prosecutors told the detective, go do more cop work and get the fucking facts. And the guy comes back and says, I'm tired. I've been working on this for 2 days. I want to go home and see my family. Well, tough shit, motherfucker. If anyone has ever read the book about the John Wayne Gacy and how they caught him, I think it's called like Killer Clown or something. They know that those cops worked endlessly because they had only a certain amount of time to get the goods on John Wayne Gacy before he either hid all the evidence or he bailed on them or whatever. And they worked, and it was around Christmas time. It was like right before Christmas. So, I'm not crying any tears for these detectives who are working, for 2 days in a row or whatever, they're tired, and I don't want to go get more evidence. So just either, well, in this case, the detective said, well, fuck it, then don't charge him. But his higher ups were like, no, charge the fucker. And they're like, then go do the detective work. If you want the charge on the guy, go do police work. Go do it. Get the goods on the guy, get the right guy, and then get that evidence so that the prosecutor doesn't have to struggle, even if it's circumstantial. Get a good circumstantial case and try the fucker.
Mm-hmm.
And what gets me is that these higher up cops, they have horrible, horrible numbers on closing out murders. And so they just want wins. They want to fudge the numbers or whatever. And so their lazy asses don't want to fucking put the time in to get the evidence. But then you get politicians who want to fucking sound tough on crime and want to blame the prosecutor for this. I'm glad that I live in a time where a prosecutor and their office is willing to say, like, no, this isn't enough evidence. Go get the fucking evidence before I put charges on this person. Because once you charge somebody, the percentage of, whether you're right or wrong, and particularly if you're wrong, the chances that this innocent person is going to find their way out of this case is very slim. Mm-hmm. Because now the burden is, really high on this person to show their innocence, even though it shouldn't be that way, but it is. And so I'm glad that we, are living in a time where the prosecutor's office is demonstrating that once in a while, they're willing to say, like, no, this is not enough. This is an important case. Go out there and do the police work so that I can bring in a good conviction. So I don't get these, I understand the frustration in the community, particularly when it's a child, or when it's like the young, the young armed services guy, because it is tragic, right? I mean, any death is tragic, but there's certain circumstances that make a death even more tragic in the community. But come on, dudes. Raylo, and what's the other guy? The guy up on the north side?
Alderman Villegas from the
Villegas. Come on, dudes. I mean, it's one thing if like they had the goods on these guys, and then the prosecutors were like, well, no, we're not going to bring charges. But it's the opposite. The police work wasn't done. The prosecutors asked them, go do more police work, and instead of saying, like, well, we don't have the resources, or, there's just no evidence out there or whatever, they're like, I want to go home. I haven't seen my kids.
Okay, so let me ask you this. Let me put it to you this way. Play devil's advocate with you and pretend I'm Raylo for a moment. Alderman Lopez, and not so much Vegas. He's heading in that direction, but a lot of the Alderman Napolitano, some of the hardcore law and order aldermen in the city of Chicago have said, in so many words, that there's blood on the hands of all the lefties in the city of Chicago who insist on protecting constitutional rights of people in the city, as opposed to just giving police pretty much unlimited powers to sweep the streets and get the bad guys off the street so the murders can go down. And every time it doesn't happen a lot, but it happens, even if it just happens once, a person out on a bond kills somebody, they're like, see, that just shows you this tolerance. It's only like Dirty Harry movie from 1970, way before Adolfo's time. And so, as a guy who lives in a high crime, your particular block is not high crime, but in an area where there's a lot of crime.
No, I mean, I live in a high crime area.
Okay, let's just call it what it is.
I live in the 54 in Brighton Park, and you go on Citizen, and it just rings every couple minutes.
So isn't there a part of you that says, yes, there is a correlation between tying the hands of police by making them abide by the rules of our Constitution and crime? Is there any part of you that is sympathetic to Raylo's contention?
No, in that, look, I sympathize with Raylo in that while I'm a civil libertarian, I have very conservative thoughts and views, man. I carry conceal in my neighborhood, okay? I believe in the Second Amendment. I don't believe in like unfettered Second Amendment rights, but you know what I'm saying. I'm tough. I say when they catch a guy and they got the goods on them, let the punishment fit the crime and let there be just desserts. I'm not like some wuss who's like, oh, he was young and and he didn't know what he was doing. No, that's cold-blooded murder. Put the guy behind bars. But at the same time, I understand that our society cannot function if we go down a slippery slope and erode the liberties of individuals have, even guilty criminals. Because if you start saying, well, we're only abusing guilty criminals' rights, before you know it, you're also, you're abusing my rights, right? And so here's the other thing too. People never think about it, but in our society, the two most powerful institutions, civic institutions that have power, discretional power, are prosecutors and police officers. I'll give you an example. The police officer is empowered by immense discretionary power. They're the ones who could decide whether to stop you and give you a ticket, or let you go, or stop you and search you. And it's in their power to do so. When the cop tells you, like, well, I can't do that, I got to arrest you. No, they have power to make a judgment call and say, I'm going to give you a warning, or you did something bad, but I'm going to let you go if it's something minor. So they have discretion to choose who to stop, who to harass, who to mess with. And that's already an immense amount of power. Prosecutors too. Who do they throw the book at? Like in this case, the prosecutors could have easily said, yeah, I know we need more evidence, but fuck it. It's an important thing. Let's lock this guy up. Does your gut tell you that this is the guy who's guilty? That's good enough for me, And so they already have an immense amount of power on who they could mess with and change their life dramatically. That it's important that there be checks and balances on them so that they don't abuse this power and that they don't end up, getting used to that power and letting it go to their head. So they start searching in, every individual in town. It's like this. If we wanted to live in a society where there's like virtually no crime, then we wouldn't have the Bill of Rights. We'd allow cops to just search everyone whenever they want it. And yeah, you'd find a lot of drugs, a lot of guns that way, but you also have a repressed society, a society where there's no freedom to do anything because everyone would be scared to go out of the street for fear of being searched or beaten or anything like that, in the name of let's put criminals behind bars. And at the end of the day, you still wouldn't get rid of crime anyway. There'd still be some marginal amount of it because you just can't shut it completely down. So you got to make a balance. And yeah, I get it. I'm like, get these motherfuckers, the ones who are doing this crime, but not at the cost of my liberties and your liberties and everyone else's liberties. There are rules. You can play the game by the rules and get good outcomes. So go play the right way. I tell this detective, whoever the guy is, yeah, I'm sorry you didn't see your family for 2 days, but this was an important case. And I'll give him credit. He did tell the prosecutors, let the guy go because I don't have enough right now. And but he could have also said, you know what, we're not going to make the arrest, but give me more time to accumulate evidence against this guy. I'll come back tomorrow and start fresh, And so it's like the rules are there, but they're not hindering the cops. The rules are there to keep them honest. And if they would only do their work, they can get good results within the rules that are supposedly binding them.
Now, if you had this debate in your neighborhood, in Brighton Park, there you live, folks in the neighborhood listening with Villegas or Raylo or any of the other aldermen who are hardcore, who do you think the people on the block would be cheering? Would they be cheering for you, or would they be cheering for Villegas and Raylo, et cetera?
Well, I guess you'd find a little bit of both. I think that what would make the difference here would be what their perception of the individuals who did the crime. Like, if their perception was like everyone knows who did it, so go and arrest them, well then yeah, then they'd be with Raylo. Like, oh, everybody knows. Well, if everybody knows, where's the fucking evidence, right? I mean, but if people were like, hey man, I've been stopped by cops, incorrectly many times. Hey, I live in this neighborhood, but I understand you got to do things by the book, because I don't want somebody innocent going to jail or having to go through this, without. And come on, and in this case again, the clock doesn't even start ticking for people who don't know until you make an arrest. You have 48 hours from the time you bring someone in arrested to let them go if you're not going to charge. Here, they hadn't even made an arrest. They still have plenty of time to go find more evidence. But the higher-ups wanted an arrest, so they made the arrest and put the clock on, And when they couldn't come up with more evidence by the time the 48 hours were done, they wanted to extend the clock. It's stupid. They should have just kept investigating, then made the arrest, and everything would have been A-okay. But because the numbers are suffering, it sounds like this area has probably a miserable record on closing out homicides. And the guy was like, my guys need a morale boost, so we need a win. That's not good enough. They need a win, so let's put some guy who we don't know if he did it or not behind bars. Come on, dude. And you know what? A lot of times the guys that they want to get are scumbags. But you can only get a scumbag for what he actually did, not for what somebody else did. That's another part of our rules.
Yeah. I didn't mention this to you before we went on the air, but listening to you talk, this has been on my mind a lot. I've talked a lot about it on the show. Get your thoughts. Some of the same people, follow me in this, Adolfo, some of the same people who are demanding that police be given extraordinary powers in these matters to arrest, even if they don't have strong evidence at the moment, or just sweep people off the street and lock them up just to get them off the street. Regardless of whether it violates their civil liberties of the people swept off the street, are now saying the government is denying their civil liberties when it comes to making them get a vaccine mandates. In fact, it's the police union in the city of Chicago that's the loudest on this, which I'm like,
what a hypocrisy, right? You arrest people left and right for all sorts of stuff like jaywalking or whatever, but if you got to go get a vaccine, well, no, fuck that. You can't enforce a rule on me. I mean, that's just utter stupidity.
All right. So what's your view as a civil libertarian? And folks, this dude is a civil libertarian. You got to hear. Sometime we're going to take a microphone to the White Sox game and just take our conversations, because they're pretty all over the map. And we cover a lot of topics, including civil liberties. This guy is a real civil libertarian. Adolfo Mondragon is.
So in terms of privacy and vaccines at the workplace, look, we have a demonstrated history of requiring vaccines for everything. From the time you want to get into kindergarten through like 6th grade, 8th grade, every couple of years you have to show that you've had vaccines to be in the public schools, in the school system, period. When I went to college, I almost didn't get matriculated my first week there because I had to show that a certain vaccine that I got in a certain year. And so I had to dig out my vaccine card and demonstrate that, or else I wouldn't have been admitted. Right there, like day one, they were like, oh, by the way, you haven't showed that you were vaccinated on a certain date. So there's already a demonstrated history that we've done this in the past, and it's been something that has not impeded our liberties at all, whether it's privacy or your ability to. Some people are claiming that these things impede your free speech. I don't know how, but they don't. These requirements do not impede any of your liberties, and so to me, I mean, they not only that, but the rules, these mandates make exceptions for certain things like medical history and they even provide a religious one, which I think is legit, but it's subject to abuse, right? Um, so they're already making exceptions, and it's just like, dude, not only that, on top of that, you add public policy that says that we have a demonstrated history that vaccines, save lives in pandemics of the past, against illnesses like polio and other diseases. And so, whether it's, the yellow fever or whatever, right? Vaccines work, they save lives. So, what the fuck is your problem, dudes? Get on the fucking program. And again, as judges have been saying, for example, for against DeSantis, you may have a right to drink, but the minute you get in a car drunk, your right to drink is fucking surpassed by our right as a society to be free of drunkards from the fucking road. Same thing here. You may have a right to feel that you don't need to be vaccinated. Fine. Then stay in your fucking house. Don't come out. Enjoy your liberty in the backyard. But the minute you come out and you start contaminating the rest of us, then your fucking right is now trumped by our societal right over your fucking views or whatever on that shit.
Well, so, by the way, we got to give Adolfo a standing. The guy is battling right now. He's got a cold. It's like Pavarotti going on stage, and he's performing anyway. And get that guy some honey and tea. I listened to that riff, Adolfo. Good job. And I'm thinking, I'm this idea just popped in my head. I'm not even certain I would make a religious exemption. I don't understand. I need to hear this.
Right.
What in the world makes the difference religion? If you argue that your core belief is that government has no right to force you to take a shot, if you say that that's your core belief and that as a result you will not, because of your core belief, allow yourself to be forcefully vaccinated, and that's your core belief. I don't know what this difference between just an atheist saying it and a person saying, well, my religious belief, my whatever sect of Christianity or Judaism I believe in won't allow. Why are we?
Yeah.
Why do we give more deference to the guy who says, to the Christian who says it, or the Jew who says it, as opposed to the atheist who says it?
Yeah, so I agree with you there in terms of that's what makes it exploitative, right? I mean, anyone could just say, well, I don't believe on religious grounds, and therefore whether you do or you don't, right? Yeah. But here's where it does get tough is, for example, like, let's say Jehovah's Witnesses who don't believe in blood transfusions, right?
Yeah.
And they're in the hospital, and, I've heard of cases where parents are like, no blood transfusion, and if they die, they die. And there's a dilemma there between the doctor who swears the first two, right, and the wishes of this individual on religious, that's tough, right? So I could see there maybe saying where religious might just barely trump, right? Here, you're right, it's a little different, but let's say it's kind of the same as with the blood transfusion. But the thing is there, with the blood transfusion, those Jehovah's Witnesses take the hit. They allow these individuals to die. So if you're going to say, I have a religious exemption for this, then you got to take the hit. Then that means you got to quarantine, you got to mask up, and you got to do every single protection or whatever down the line so that you're not harming the rest of us. So if that's what you want to do, you want to take this exemption, then you got to pay the cost for that exemption. Just the way, like, somebody would take the blood transfusion, arguing and saying, like, no, I don't want a doctor giving my son a blood transfusion. Yeah. Well, it's at their cost because they're going to die. So here, you want you don't want the shot. Well, then you got to take the cost. That means that you gotta play now by our rules. You got to stay at home. You got to mask up. You got to do everything possible so that you don't get us sick.
I'm with you, and that's why as soon as you went down the road with the blood transfusion analogy, I was all set to say it's different, and then you
Right.
beat me to the punch by pointing out how it's different. I tend to find my inner Law and Order Raylo on this issue, and I'm wondering if Alderman Lopez would join me on this one. But my attitude is, if your point is that your conscience or whatever, your political beliefs or religious beliefs will not allow you for some reason to get this vaccine, okay? And then and I come back and say, but if you don't get this vaccine, you could be exposing other people to this disease that could kill them, or you could be exposing yourself to a disease that could kill you and require medical care. And they say, I don't care, that's just the way it is, then I think you should sign a freaking waiver saying you're not going to go to the medical care. You're not like Donnie Trump.
I think that, you know, sometimes if you're opposed to these certain things, then you got to take the hit. It's not like I want it my way and only my way. Well, hey, it takes two to tango. All right, we're going to give you this exemption, and you'll be free from having to do this, even though we fucking strongly disagree. But in return, you have to do this. You have to give a waiver, and you have to say and live by your fucking decision. Now, you can back out of your decision at any time. I'll give you the shot. You want to come back over here and change your mind, fine. But until you do that and you get sick, fuck you, you know? Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. It's a two-way street. You want to get something, then you got to give us something too.
Okay.
And that's the way it's got to work, right?
All right. We'll move on from this one and move on to something that's been on my mind. Get your thoughts on this. No ducking and dodging on this one. Every guest who comes on this show is being forced to address this issue. Well, almost every guest. And I forgot to ask my last guest, but whatever. All right. Adolfo Mondragon. No ducking, no dodging. Former mayor of the city of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, has been nominated to be ambassador to Japan. The lefties in the Democratic Party, myself included, saying what a disgrace that he was even nominated. Dems, don't vote for him. My friends of the moderate persuasion are saying, Ben, come on. What do you care? Let it alone. It's just too much trouble for Joe Biden on this particular issue. Just let Rahm get his little ambassadorship and let him go off to Japan, and we're probably better off without him in the city of Chicago. Where do you, Adolfo Mondragon, stand on this issue? Go.
Fuck Rahm. I mean, I hate how this system perpetuates and recycles fucking losers like Rahm, enrich them, because this is a man who got rich not because he had an enormous set of skills that, like, you know, he was industrious and he fucking, you know, went out and made this money. No, he worked in the White House, had all this insider information, which is what I consider insider information, then went out and sold his fucking ass, his insider information to the world and said, hire me, pay me a shitload of money, and I'll schmooze with the people I make contacts with while I had the privilege of serving in the fucking White House. Fuck him, because meanwhile, the ordinary people have to fucking bust their ass to make a living wage. And his ass, because he was privileged enough to fucking work in the White House, gets to take this information and these contacts and then fucking whore himself out and make tons of money. It's like presidents too, man. Even Obama with the book deals and all that other shit. I mean, dude, you're not a millionaire. You don't need to live life like a fucking gazillionaire. You're just a regular old schmo, just like the dude I knew who taught me fucking con law. You're a lawyer. Hillary Clinton too. Go work at a law firm. You'll make a lot of fucking money. You won't make gazillions of dollars, but you'll make 300 grand, 400 grand a year. That's a lot of money. You could live a really good life that way. You don't need to be a millionaire, you know? And the same shit with these, you know, with Rahm, it's worse because this dude didn't even have a skill, like a profession. He just enriched himself. And he's like a millionaire, man. This dude has millions of dollars.
Yeah.
Why?
I would say instead of saying millionaire, I would say multimillionaire.
Multi-millionaire, exactly.
Multimillionaire, because that's what Obama. That's where they're.
Because he was able to get on the phone and call like important Republicans and fucking lobbyists and shit like that because of the people he met at the White House. Fuck that. That information should be considered the same way I've always believed as inside information when you get like a stock tip before like you're able to actually act on it. I mean, it's the same thing. There should be a fucking paper that you sign when you work at the White House and say any connections or whatever like that, you're fucking prohibited from using in any fashion for like 15 years. And then after that, you could do whatever the fuck you want.
Well, I thought he was going to duck and dodge. He didn't duck and dodge at all. Yeah.
And the thing
I
is,
know where
at the
you're
end of the day, like,
Yeah.
so, okay, so you're like, but Joe Biden will be hounded by him if he doesn't cast him away in exile somewhere so that he's not a bother. Who the fuck is Rom gonna bother? I mean, the dude is done. He is talented at fucking giving himself press and promote. Like the way I understand this whole Japan thing originated was he started a rumor saying that he was up for the fucking ambassadorship like 2 years ago. So he's the one who put the rumor out to get himself this fucking ambassadorship, probably like as an option for him if other shit didn't pan out or whatever. And I'm like, fuck this fucking, I mean, like, total scumbag. I mean, like, is it enough that he already made millions and he lives this absurd ass life? I'm recalling Maya Dukmasova did a brilliant piece in the Reader back about some podcast, I think it was, that was about Rom or something like that. She listened to all the
I'll tell you what it was, because I had her on the show and interviewed her, but it was hilarious. Maya Dukmasova, who should have gotten a pay raise for this, dedicated her life for about a month or so, or her work life anyway, to listening to Rom's podcast. When Rom was mayor of the city of Chicago, we'd have a sit-down conversation with various Chicagoans. And Maya listened to them all, then wrote a long article. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
If you from that man, his musings and shit, he's living in a fucking different world, clearly. And part of it is because he is a gazillionaire. And he doesn't have to live, maybe when he was growing up, and maybe definitely his parents, knew what it was like to work hard and all that other stuff. But this motherfucker is living in some other world where there was an episode in this podcast where, like, he was musing about having his kid at dinner with the CEO of some fucking Fortune 500 company and, like, telling his kid some utter bullshit about life. And I'm like, and how lucky his son was to have these dinners with him, with Fortune 500 and politicians and all that. I'm like, you are living in some fucking other world, dude. That's why your sense of the world is fucking warped.
Yeah.
And for us to give him another elite and privileged fucking position in government is utter bullshit. This guy should just go live off his millions and shut the fuck up.
All right. I got to ask you this. I hadn't even planned to ask you this, but my obsession, which I'm really restraining myself from talking about all the time, I tend to dwell in the past because the president is so horrible on so many fronts, Adolfo. But I watched episode 1 on Tuesday of the Ryan Murphy 10-part series on Clinton and Monica Lewinsky. I don't know if you saw that by any chance.
Oh, I missed it. Right, it's every Tuesday, right?
Yeah, every Tuesday. Well, you could try it. You could watch it tonight. They're dropping a new episode. I found it fascinating. I urge everybody to watch it. It just shows what went down in that whole episode, and how that led ultimately to Clinton's impeachment. And ultimately, in my humble opinion, it's led to sort of the disfigurement of the Democratic Party, because Bill Clinton is such a freaking hypocrite and so clearly and obviously a con man that it makes it that much harder for Democrats to go out and win over voters. I believe that. I honestly believe that. I saw that.
Yeah.
That's why Donnie Trump won in 2016. And so you can see it all at play in this documentary. But you also can see the nefarious behavior of the Republicans, who are just trying to do everything they can to take advantage of this man's low life character.
Right.
Adolfo.
But they make it easy. That's my thing about Democrats. Gary Hart, for example, dude, brilliant dude, right? I mean, I was young, but he was like a great hope and shit. And then the motherfuckers over here having an affair. I mean, they make it easy for Republicans who do a better job of covering up their pedophilia and all this other shit that they pretend to be against, but are actually, totally engaged in. It's just like the Democrats make it easy for these fuckers to just pick away at their vices and their, and all their bad behavior. I never liked that hillbilly dude. I didn't vote for him the first time. I voted for him the second time, but only because by then he had served one term, and I was like, well.
Wait, were you even old enough to vote in '92?
That was my first election. That was my freshman year in college.
When you say you didn't vote for him, you telling me you voted for George Herbert?
I voted for the status quo. I voted for George Herbert Walker Bush, who, like every president is controversial, but there was some decency in the man. If you look back now, there was also some other fucked up stuff that he did with Lee Atwater and, other shit too. But none of these fuckers are perfect. Even Obama. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that I could criticize about Obama too. And, and I think the guy's a good guy and he's decent, but he's also fucked up in a lot of ways. But my point is that I never liked that hillbilly Bill Clinton. And I didn't vote for his ass because I knew something was up with him. And, years later, it all comes to fruition and we know all the truth about, how much this guy was a con artist. I remember guys in college telling me about Bill Clinton, about how this con artist in him, about how he excelled at getting other people to do his homework at Yale Law School. I mean, yeah, the guy was brilliant, but if you go around having people like Hillary and everybody else in your class do your homework, I mean, what the fuck?
Oh my God. Hillary's been carrying that guy for years. Let's not go down the Hillary road. I will say this. I flash back to 1992. I'll probably be recollecting this a lot because I will be talking about this series, ladies and gentlemen. Just bear with me. I'm obsessed with it. I feel it explains what went down in the 90s. It really explains so much about the dynamics of where we are politically speaking right now. The way the Republicans play the game, the way the Democrats play the game of politics, that is, and why the Republicans ultimately have been more successful than the Democrats. And we think it's all about issues, and we think that it's not. It's just raw politics, and the Republicans are just out in the open.
Republicans play hardball, and Democrats are pussies.
Well, Democrats play hardball on themselves. Rahm Emanuel was tough on unions in Chicago, the teachers union.
Republicans, they're wusses, man. I mean, take the 2000 election recount in Florida. The Democrats came in and they were all like civil and like, oh, gentlemen, we are gonna do this and blah blah blah. Fucking Jim Baker went in there and he was like, fuck this shit. We're going to fucking win this motherfucker.
Yeah. And then they got their judges, just like Texas, they got their judges lined up in the Supreme Court and won their decision. I'm with you. No. And Jesse Jackson wanted to go to Florida. My God, you got me talking about 2000. Jesse Jackson wanted to go to Florida. And Al Gore's campaign said, don't go. They were embarrassed by Jesse Jackson. Meanwhile, you had all these Republicans in the streets rattling the cages. And you're right. Democrats back off from fights with Republicans, but they're really tough with lefty
they're
Democrats.
Really tough on AOC and anybody who dares to fucking go against their own hypocrisies within the party. And they're really good at fucking battering their own fucking team, man. Talk about throwing people and their own team under the bus. They love to do that shit, but God forbid they go up against a Republican. Oh no, no.
I'm friends. That's what I'm saying. I get along with Republicans. Why are you bragging about that, by the way? What member of the Republican Party right now do you want to say is my friend? I'm just trying to think.
My God.
I guess oh boy, Kinzinger is the one guy who's acted honorably, but even he's a right winger. So I don't. Anyway, neither here nor there. I'm going to make you watch this show, Adolfo, because
I've been meaning to watch it, because it looks fabulous, and I like the fact that Monica Lewinsky, who, by the way, I mean, talk about Democrat hypocrisy and fucking white feminists too. They threw her under the bus big time.
They did.
It's a travesty what happened to her. I'm glad that she was positioned socially enough where she could marry someone and then lead a life. And although she, her life has never been the same after that. I mean,
no, she's not married. She didn't marry anybody.
Didn't she marry and have kids? No.
I don't know. I don't know.
I thought I read a thing a couple years ago where she got married, and well, maybe I got it wrong, but they fucking destroyed her. And here's the thing. I was working at ACLU at the time. And I love the people that I worked at ACLU with, and they might look at these things differently. But I remember when they were making accusations, Republicans were making accusations about Bill Clinton, about how, he had a history of being a predator on women and stuff. And I remember one attorney, I won't say who or whatever at the time, was rationalizing and saying like, oh, well, I could have come out of so-and-so's office looking flustered and they could have just said that so-and-so was being a predator on me. And I'm like, no, you're defending this dude and trying to rationalize this behavior and minimizing these accusations of these women. And you're like the liberals here. What the fuck? Yeah. But they threw Monica Lewinsky under the bus, man. They destroyed her. And for what? I mean, this dude is a douchebag. Bill Clinton is a fucking douchebag.
All right, I could see you already feeling strong. I urge you to watch it. And some of my friends have said, but Ben, Ryan Murphy sensationalizes. He goes for the really sleazy elements, and I'm like, what is not sleazy about? How could you possibly do any kind of review of the life of Bill Clinton and not immediately engage sleaze? And so if you believe the world is pristine and you believe the propaganda that the Bill Clinton feeds you, then maybe you shouldn't watch this movie because it's going to open your freaking eyes about how you were bamboozled, Democrats, by this con man who is probably a slicker con man than even Donald Trump.
I was recently watching some show that was mentioning about, remember that incident that Ariana Grande had where the Reverend at some memorial groped her?
Yes.
Well, behind on the dais, it was Jesse Jackson and Bill Clinton were on the dais that day too with this Reverend guy. And if you notice, when Ariana Grande was up there, Jesse and Bill Clinton were fucking talking some shit about her, man. You could tell they were like, look at her. Oh, yeah, she's all good and everything. And I'm like, these old ass motherfuckers are on a dais in public.
Yeah.
And they're fucking leering on this young, hot, artist. And it's clear that they're talking about her, man. They're just like, look at her. Oh, yeah, look at it, look at that.
Yeah.
And then this other guy goes up there and then gropes her a couple minutes later. It's just like, dude, these guys are scum, man. They're horrible.
Yeah, and I hate to say it, but I voted for Bill Clinton twice, having said that. All right, my own culpability at all. Adolfo, you took one for the team coming on, even though you have a cold. So I want you to go get some rest, drink some tea with honey. I'm going to bring you on a lot sooner than I did the last time, if for no other reason than I clearly, you're a guy who's ready to discuss the ongoing Clinton.
Oh, we got to talk about court Zooms also.
Next time. So, Adolfo Mondragon on Zoom Court, ladies and gentlemen, could be its own separate podcast. We didn't even get to that. So, all right, Adolfo, get well and go White Sox. I'll talk to you soon, all right?
All right, take care. Hey, Dr. D, shout out, bro.
Hey, thanks, man.
All right,
guys.
I want to thank Adolfo Mondragon.
By the way, how many F-bombs do you think he dropped? Frank kept track. Frank actually has the number. Take a guess as to how many F-bombs he laid out there.
I would okay. Frank calculate. Okay.
Seemed like more than the number Frank has, but I mean, I trust Frank.
I would say 20.
20. Is that your final answer, Ben? Feel good about 20?
Yeah, 20.
37.
How about when I asked him about Rom? I loved his response. Can we keep that as a clip? You know, do you remember the first words out of his mouth when I asked him about Rom?
What can you remind us?
They were, and I quote, "Fuck Rom."
Oh wow!
Like, okay. Anyway,
you will not hear this on Lumpin' Radio, guys. I'm not. I don't get paid that well.
Oh Lord, that will make it. God, he was in rare form. I think it was the cold. The cold just loosened his inhibitions. Anyway, I want to thank Adolfo Mondragon and Emerson did a great job in the opening, talking about what it's like to have an alderman just say all kinds of denigrating things about you. So thank you very much, Ann, for having the guts to come on. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank the man, the myth, the legend, the pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible. This guy who has mastered, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think you appreciate how he's mastered the intricacies of podcasting. Somehow or other, we get on the air. I don't know how he does it. I think he's got like wires to his neighbors. Old cable.
It's weird. It's weird over here.
It is weird. Ladies and gentlemen, this is definitely a bootleg operation, but God bless them. The pride and joy of Alton, Illinois, without whom this show would be possible. And as Ann Emerson, Adolfo Mondragon, and Rahm Emanuel would weigh in with this one. Back home in Alton, they call him White Lightning. Give yourself a raise, take it out of petty cash. See you tomorrow, everybody.
You have to be a good neighbor.
Ion.